private consulting company, but we are redoing all of our online courses. We're updating them. The work that we did with Environment Celebration Institute is about 6 to 8 years old. We have discovered so much. So we're redoing all of those classes, and we're starting another company called Web School. So the online courses, all updated, new material, new information, mastermind classes to help people. Enough of the ad. Here we go, next slide. Just to remind you of my background a little bit. I'm a Minnesota girl, don't you know, for sure.
Hi guys, we're listening to Elaine right now. Does it sound okay?
How funny that was. I'm sitting in the audience going, why are you laughing? That's how everybody talks, don't you know? So yeah, and so there you are, I'm wandering through, and I think it's boring, so we're just going to go on to the next slide. Why be concerned with wildlife? Because it is what makes healthy plants, and if you got healthy plants, you got healthy animals and healthy human beings, because you are what you eat. And so we need to be eating the right things. We need to be smoking the right things. So we don't need toxic chemicals to grow plants. I want to cover that topic just a little bit so you understand. Inorganic fertilizers, organic fertilizers are not needed. We don't have to add more. We do not need to be moron farmers. So, proper balance of all the nutrients are provided by the organic matter that we're using. There is nothing wrong in growing plants in 100% organic matter as long as you have put a diversity of different kinds of plant materials into that organic matter. And so you've got the nutrition that your plant requires. Well, exactly how does that work? We're going to go into that in a little bit of detail so you understand that. All nutrients, except for two, come from the soil. Which are the two nutrients that your plant gets from above ground? Sunlight. Does your plant need oxygen?
Water.
Water, yeah. But carbon dioxide. So sunlight, energy, and carbon dioxide, because the plant's got to take that carbon dioxide, the carbon from the first carbon dioxide, and then it stores sunlight energy and bonds on another carbon. That makes a simple sugar. If your plant needs a 3-carbon sugar, then it just sticks another carbon on here and stores sunlight energy. If your plant needs a 4-carbon sugar, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 100, plant just keeps attaching them and storing energy. But of course your plant can't grow on sugar alone. So where is your plant going to get the nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, water? Everything else has to come through the root system. So where is the nutrient pool where you do not ever have to worry about whether your plant is going to get all those nutrients or not? Where is that nutrient pool? Yeah, it's called organic matter and sand, silt, and clay. And most people don't really understand them, so I'm going to show you a few tables that hopefully won't bore you too much. So, next slide. A healthy food web does all of these things for you. So, you don't have to be using pesticides. You don't have to be using inorganic fertilizers. You don't have to have those fungicides or nematicides or bactericides or science. What do we mean when we say an aside? A pest aside. It means we're killing things. And there is no compound on this planet that kills just one species of bad guy. They all kill more beneficial organisms. All those pesticides of any kind kill more beneficial organisms than they're going to kill of the disease causers, the pests, the problem organisms. So what are you doing when you use one of those acidal things? You're killing the very organisms your plant needs to get the nutrients, to protect its surfaces from the diseases, from the pests. So if we can get these good guy organisms back on the surfaces of your plants, but when you think of a plant growing out in the real world, where do the beneficial organisms to cover the above ground part of the plant? And guess what? You're covered with these same good guys too. If you have managed to not put on perspirant, antiperspirants, that you put on those little things that, oh yeah, bad body smells. Don't do that, because you're just killing the good guys. And you're gonna still end up with what causes body odor? I'll say, I can go off on all kinds of, yeah, so what causes body odor? Anaerobic bacteria making all these wonderful toxic chemicals. That's what stinks. So how do you deal with the body odor problem? Go take a swim in compost tea. And you are now all perfectly covered with all this wonderful biology, and you don't have to be buying that expensive toxic chemical that you put on your body and causes cancer. So we have to understand all of these things. So suppressing diseases, we're going to retain nutrients, as Elaine was talking in the previous. It's the bacteria and fungi that pull those nutrients into their bodies. Those are the retainers. They keep the nutrients up here where your root system is, because the bacteria glue to those surfaces. The fungi have hyphae that bind themselves to those surfaces. Making nutrients available, I want to go through that in detail. If you get toxins in the soil, if you get all the horrible stinky smelling things that we just talked about, how do you decompose them? If you don't have the right biology, they're going to stay there forever. If you have the right biology, there is no organic compound on this planet that we don't have a microorganism to break down. We might have to search for them, but they are present out there. When clopyralid, the synthetic herbicide, was first introduced, I don't know if you remember what happened down in Seattle, where the clopyralid was applied in Seattle, one of the first places it was sold. And all of that clopyralid did not decompose because the microorganisms in these environments had never seen that carbon compound before. So all of a sudden, if you were using grass material to which clopyralid had been added, and using that in your compost pile, and you took that compost and put it on your garden area, you could not grow vegetables because the clopyralid was still there, untouched. Imprellis, the same thing. Dicambra, same thing. There's another one that our government, in its infinite stupidity, has just gone ahead and approved. It kills everything. It is a sterilant. Yeah, good luck. Well, we're going to have to find the organism that will decompose that, but where is it? It takes a while sometimes to find it. But rest assured, it's out there. We will find it. It's just that if you happen to be one of those initial people affected by it, it could take us a year or two to find that organism, but it is out there. So you can start looking now. And building soil structure. How do you keep your soil aerobic? You have to build structure. So you have the halls, you have the air passageway, you have the tunnels that allow oxygen to come from up here into that soil. How deep down into the soil do those tunnels go? How deep do we have active living organisms in your soil? And Elaine told you, all the way. Active living growing organisms in molten rock. They're there, and they will build structure if we will just stop killing them up here on the surface of the planet. We can't be using those toxic chemicals. So, next slide. What's the difference between soil and dirt? So this is a definition from one of the fathers of soil science, Hans Jenny. So back in the 1800s, he defined soil as being mineral components, sandstone, clay, rocks, pebbles, parent material, and organic matter, and organisms. It cannot be soil if you don't have all of those components. You can't build structure. You can't have the healthy, good guy organisms present in that material if it's not aerobic. They can't live, they can't grow, they can't be there. So we have to have the organisms because you can't form structure without organisms. I love that when somebody says, I'm going to prove that E. coli can grow just fine in compost. And they take a composted material that's totally sterile. They got way too hot or way too dry, it's absolutely sterile. And they throw a culture of E. coli into that compost. And because there's no competition for that bad guy, it just has a wonderful time. How do you shut down that E. coli? You add an inoculum of the normal compost organisms, and E. coli will be gone in 48 hours. E. coli cannot outcompete the aerobic beneficial organisms. So you gotta have all of the components. You can't forget. There is a boatload of publications in the scientific literature that says compost kills plants. Well, no, it wasn't compost because it didn't have the beneficial organisms in it. All it had were the disease colors. So dirt is where you've killed off the organisms and where you have no foods to feed them. So engineered soil, when all you do is worry about how much sand, how much silt, how much clay. No organic matter, no organisms, engineered soil. So all the engineered soils that we use to build urban areas, what are we setting ourselves up for? We gotta get the life back in it, and we've gotta get the organic matter back into it. We gotta make sure that organic matter, as it decomposes, maintains structure so oxygen will move into that material. Somebody over here had a question after Layton, where, can you just put how thick can this layer of organic matter be that you put on the soil? Standard ecological answer, it depends. On what? And how much life do you have in there building structure? If you dump that material and it compacts, utterly wet, compacted material, and it goes anaerobic, you've got problems. And that compaction can happen in half an inch or an inch or 5 inches or 10 feet. But if you keep that aerobic, you can have as deep an organic matter layer as you want. You go into some of the work that has been done in Oregon and you look at how deep is the A horizon in some of our soils in Oregon, and it's 40 feet. Not anaerobic at all. How well do our Douglas fir trees grow? Yeah. So how deep can that organic matter layer be? I bet we've got places where it's down 250 feet, maybe more. No one's actually looked, so where's the data? So let's keep going. When we're looking at the minerals that actually occur in the sand, the silt, the clay, the rocks, and pebbles, I'd like to point out over in that first column is the elements that we're talking about. And notice as we go down that, there's iron, there's carbon, there's calcium, Ca, calcium, magnesium, potassium. There we go. If you're concerned about potassium, do you have any potassium in your sandstone clay? Yeah. There's 14,000 milligrams per kilogram, which pretty much equals pounds per acre. You have 14,000 pounds per acre of potassium in your sandstone clay. When you keep going, manganese, molybdenum, nickel, copper, the third from the bottom is nitrogen. How many of you need more than 2,000 pounds per acre of nitrogen to grow your cannabis? It's in your soil. Why are you adding more? It's absolutely unnecessary. Look at your phosphorus. I just love it when the chemical phosphate company industry says, oh, we're running out of phosphate on the planet. We are going to have to spend billions of dollars to find a new source of phosphate. Oh my God, what are we going to do? What? It's in your soil. Go look at your sandstone clay It's there. So how is it then that we add nitrate fertilizer on the field and your plants start growing better? What's going on? What's missing? Bingo, biology. You don't have the bacteria and the fungi that will make the enzymes to pull all of these nutrients out of the silica bilayer of the sand, the silt, the clays, the rocks, the metal, everything else. If you've got organic matter in your soil, again, it's the plant that's making the exudates to tell the bacteria and fungi to make the enzymes to pull those nutrients out of the organic material. If you form a plant cell, you have to have all the mineral nutrients in that plant cell for that plant cell to exist. So how can we be lacking nutrients if we're dealing with organic matter? The problem is we've killed the bacteria and the fungi that are supposed to be there to get the message from your plant to make the enzymes that pull those nutrients out of your sand, silt, clay, and organic material and pull them into the bacteria and fungi. And then, of course, you've got to have the predators of the bacteria and fungi that will eat those guys. And because bacteria and fungi are the most concentrated form of any nutrient in a living organism, when they're eaten by their predators, the excess nutrients have to be spit out. They have to be pooped out. So what is nematode manure? What is amoeba manure? It's these soluble nutrients that your plant requires. And so the plant takes up what it needs. And if there's any excess that your plant doesn't need, doesn't take up, then the bacteria and fungi that didn't get eaten are happily there to grab it so it doesn't wash out of your soil if you don't destroy your water. We are not going to have leaching. We are not going to have erosion if we get this biology back into our soil. Next slide, please. So, going through that food web, we got to have everybody. They all have their function. They have their roles. Those of you maybe don't quite know how all of this fits together. I have an online course with 27 45-minute lectures that explain it all for you. So if you don't know this, otherwise you're going to have to pick on Layton for 2 weeks. For him to go through all those lectures for you, or Jim, and one of my students is here today. Jim, you want to wave at everybody? So he is in the process of learning all of this. He's taking classes, and so there you go. Talk to Jim. Invite him over. Have a chat with him. There was a laboratory that is being formed here in British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver. Joe Tobias, if any of you know her. She'll be here later this afternoon. And so she is the lab that you could be using here. We have a lab in Alberta that's opening up. We have a lab, well, if you want to know where the labs are, go to the website. There's the list. Yep, the lab is on, all the different labs are in the process of going up on the website. Question?
The lab in Vancouver is Root Shoot Soils.
Thank you. That's Joe's email address, rootshootsoils@gmail.com.
Yep.
Good. So, we've got those abilities for you to send samples or learn some of the, if you take the online courses, one of the courses is of course the microscope class, so you can learn to do this yourself. You don't have to necessarily get really quantitative about whether you've got these organisms in your soil or not. What you want to do is when you take your soil, dilute it 1 to 5, 1 gram of your soil, 4 mils of water, shake it, drop on your microscope slide, and you start looking through that microscope slide and there's no organisms there at all. Do you really have to quantify that? You know right away, uh-oh, I got some work to do. What if I'm seeing a strand of fungal hyphae in every 10 fields? Maybe not enough. Well, how many protozoa? How many nematodes? So we teach you how to look at those things. You don't necessarily have to get highly quantitative about it. What we want you to end up with is, I want at least 10,000 bacteria per field. Do you have to count all of them? There, you look at that and you go, wow, there's lots of bacteria. I don't have to worry about them. I've got them. How many fungal strands? We want you to be able to see or feel, so it's pretty easy. You just have to learn to recognize. And guess what? I'm going to quickly go over that a little bit today. So, let's go on to the next slide. Yeah, here we go. Pictures of organisms. What are the critical things you got to be looking for? So we got a little bit of that from Elaine, but let's keep going. Morphology means what they look like. We have criteria for all of these organisms. Turn to the living organism next to you, sitting in this row. How do you know that's a human being? How do you know? The criteria. Yeah, got a head, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, a couple of arms, legs, you know, there's some variation there, you know, you can tell a little bit more than whether they're human or not. Now, every once in a while, I wonder, I'm going to pick on Elaine here, I wonder whether Elaine is real. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so that's the criteria of human being. Now, is it a good human being? We can go further with the criteria and actions. Yeah, so we know based on appearance and then function. What do these guys do? So next slide. We're looking here. I'm gonna walk over and point at things. So I'm gonna try to talk really loud so you can hear me. What is this guy right here? Now, Layton told you. Cecilia. And we know that because it's a single cell, chock full of bacteria. Look at all the bacteria in there. You have some bacteria out here, single, round guys, not fine. But ciliates have cilia. Ciliates. So there we are. And they move pretty fast. They're resuming. We call them the race car drivers of the soil because you'll be sitting there looking through your microscope and whoop. Did you see the cilia on that cilia? It just went boom. So you go, yep, I got ciliates. Oh, that's not good. So identifying these guys, lots of different bacteria. There are rod-shaped bacteria, there are round bacteria. This is a root in here. Is this a healthy root or is it a sick root? Just look at that divot where the disease-causing fungus has attacked and is starting to consume that root. So this is a dead root that could very possibly end up killing your plant. So we learn how to identify all these things. Next slide. Good fungal hyphae. How do I know this is good fungal hyphae? You can identify the strands in there, right? How long is that strand of fungal hyphae? Well, you just need to know if they're here or not. You don't actually have to measure them. Now, when we do a soil report for you, we measure them, we give you the biomass of each of the organisms, the numbers of the organisms. And how do I know that this is a good guy? It has to be wide diameter. It's got to be dark color, or at least colored. Some hyphae are pink, some are orange, some are red. Most of them are brown or black or tan. As long as they're colored, they're probably good guys. They do branch. They may have cross walls that, like I was talking about the septa. On this particular guy, we can see some oxalate crystals grabbing and holding on to nutrients. So nutrient reservoir. As the fungus grows, it's always picking up more nutrients and holding it in its biomass. It's also a way to sequester carbon in your soil. You slice and dice and crush all of your fungi, you're losing your carbon holding ability. So we need to have that fungal component if we want to put that elevated CO2 in our atmosphere back into the soil from whence it came. We're responsible for most of that carbon being blown off into the atmosphere. So as human beings, it's us who did that. And is it really people down in Brazil that did most of that damage? No, it's us in North America. So we're kind of responsible. Maybe we should be getting more fungi back into that soil. And you need those fungi to grow healthy cannabis. So strands of fungal hyphae. You can see one type of fungal hyphae. They all look kind of the same, the brown things. Now, can you see the light brown? Can you find the light brown fungal hyphae in here? Yeah, shh, you know. So it's in this corner. So if you gotta have sharp eyes, that's a strand of fungal hypha. There's another strand of fungal hypha, clear, colorless, so maybe not as beneficial, but because of the light diameter, that is also beneficial. Can you find the disease-causing fungus in this picture? Diameter is less than 2, and it's clear in color. Well, can you find that? In micrometers. So 10 to -6 meters. So there's a bad guy, it's a little bit out of focus. Will that bad guy cause disease? Look at all the good guys in there. There is not one chance in God's green earth that disease-causing fungus is going to kill anything, as long as all of the beneficials are there and functioning and inhibiting, consuming, and competing with the bad guy. So we have to have these organisms in our soil to make sure that none of the bad guys can make it. Next slide. Arbuscules inside a root system. This is an onion, and you can see the mycorrhizal, endomycorrhizal fungal arbuscules inside. And so the plant and the fungus, they're making a deal. And the plant is saying, hey, I need some nitrogen, I need some phosphorus, I need some magnesium, and you've got to go, you're out there, I need some water. And so the fungus is saying, okay, I can go get those things because I've already got the hyphae out in the soil gathering those nutrients for myself. I'll just go get some more for you. But how much sugar do I get in exchange for that nitrogen? You know, is that 5 bits of sugar or is that 25 bits of sugar? So they're making a deal. Deciding what the exchange is, and so the plant says, okay, for this much sugar, I want these things. So the fungus says, great, I'm going to pull those nutrients in, feed them to the plant feeds the fungus, both organisms grow better. A lot more complexity in that, we go through this in the course, but just an idea to give you an understanding of these kinds of exchanges. Cannabis is an obligately mycorrhizal plant. You are not going to be able to grow really healthy cannabis without the mycorrhizal fungi. But Elaine talked about a significant problem. You really need to have actively colonized root systems in your ecosystems with your cannabis. If you want that interaction, you want the cannabis roots, plant you just put in, if you want that to get colonized within 2 weeks, you better have existing plants with mycorrhizal colonization in them, functioning and active, if you want your cannabis to get colonized really rapidly. Sticking some spores into the soil and then sticking your start into that soil, it's going to take at least a month before there's going to be any possibility of a benefit, and probably more like 2 months before your plant's really going to get all of the benefit that's possible. So we want existing plants in that system. So here we go. We want all those perennial, low-growing plants that will intercept the most compacting factor that you've got in any system, and that's called rainfall. The thing that causes most of the compaction in soil is when that raindrop smacks on the surface of your soil. And it will cause a compaction layer typically of 4 to 6 inches into the soil. It's not at the surface. If you've got soil that's going hard like concrete in the middle of the summertime, whole different mechanism for why that happens. As your water is pulled up to the surface of your soil and evaporates, that water is leaving behind salt, leaving behind the calcium carbonate, leaving behind the calcium sulfate, the lime, and the gypsum that maybe you added into that soil. And now it's going to make concrete out of your surface as water evaporates off the top. It's going to leave behind any salt, potassium, chloride, potassium carbonate, potassium, any of the potassiums. So those salts are left at the surface, and that causes that concrete-like compaction. How do you deal with this? Well, don't let the water get pulled to the top and evaporate. Make certain that that surface is covered at least with mulch, or even better is a nice canopy of perennial plants that are only growing a couple of inches tall. So we might not know exactly which are the best perennial cover plants for you and your conditions. There's a little bit of testing that has to occur, but in long term, you are going to be massively benefited by not setting up the conditions that cause weeds to be selected for and your cannabis to be selected against. So we gotta keep that habitat something that is highly beneficial to the cannabis. So we gotta have mycorrhizal fungi, we gotta have bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, we gotta have microarthropods, so you gotta have the cover plants, all these things. So next slide. Actomycorrhizal fungi only form an interaction in the first one or two cell layers in that root. And so they are only found on evergreen plants. So conifers, eucalyptus, evergreens, any of your shrubs that are evergreens, we typically find that they are actomycorrhizal. But it's the same positive effect. The plant is telling the fungus, here's the deal, I'll give you so much sugar if you go out and get me these nutrients. The nutrients come back, there's the exchange, fungus and plant grow better. Next slide. You can see the beneficial fungi, or many of the beneficial fungal species, with your eyeballs, but it's gotta be these strands, not fuzzy wuzzy. If all you're seeing is just a fungal wet stuff, you can't see these thick strands, then it's probably not a good guy fungus. You want to be seeing those strands. Next slide. Flagellate, they eat bacteria, releasing nutrients in a plant available form. So of course you want to be seeing these guys. Next slide. Beneficial nematodes. This is a bacterial feeding nematode. Well, again, it eats bacteria. The nutrient concentration in the bacteria is so much higher of everything. It's not just nitrogen. It's of everything. So it doesn't matter if the bacteria ate organic matter or if it made the enzymes to pull these nutrients out of the silica bilayers of the sandstone clays, rocks and pebbles. Bacteria is way higher in all nutrients. The nematode that's eating it can't tolerate all of those high levels, and so what's coming out the butt end of this nematode? Soluble nutrients for your plant. They have to, next slide, fungal feeders. So this is a fungal feeder attacking a fungal hypha, and you can see the spear right there. It uses that spear to puncture the cell wall of the fungus, and then you can see that it's sucking out the cytoplasm, the juice from inside that fungal hypha. And that nematode will go after bad guys, it can go after good guys. Its preference, fungal feeding nematodes have a preference for disease-causing fungi first. And then if there's nothing else, they'll go after the good guy fungi. So they are another mechanism for preventing diseases and pests from being able to survive and live. Next slide. Predatory nematodes. And people always go, oh, predatory nematodes, they must be bad, they must be eating my plant. No, no, no. There are cannibals in the soil. And this is a nematode that eats other nematodes, and you can see them engulfing that other nematode. Predatory nematodes have a great big mouth, and they always have a tooth in their mouth so they can grab onto the other nematode and pull it into their mouth. And so it's being able to identify all these things is really that something that you might want to learn how to do or send it to a lab where somebody else has already had the training. Next slide. Oh, these are the bad guys. Root feeding nematodes. Can you see the spear in this guy's mouth? So that end of the nematode is the mouth. Can you see the spear? Am I pointing to the spear? Yes. What's the distinguishing characteristic about this spear that tells you automatically this is a root-feeding nematode and it is reducing yield, is killing plants? Right there. See those knobs? A root-feeding nematode has to punch its way through a thick cell wall on those root cells. And so it has to have two knobs at the bottom of that spear to pull the spear back and then cause that punch so that it can get that spear through the cell wall and suck out the internal contents of your root cell. And root-feeding nematodes can do a fair bit of damage. Just a single one can cause a fair bit of damage, so we don't want very many of them present. Next slide. So the organisms do the work for you, all these beneficial things that they do, so I hope you can understand on this so short talk, short portion of this talk, why they're important. So now, next slide. How far down do roots go? What cause roots to go deeper into the soil? It has to be aerobic. Any place where you have a compaction layer, so let's say your compaction layer is right up here at the top of your soil. Yeah, your roots are going to be right here at the top of the soil. I have heard several times during yesterday and today where people were describing plants where their root systems are always just up at the surface of the soil. That's where they grow. No, it's not. Got that? You've got a compaction layer right here. That's what's causing your root systems to not go any deeper. There's no plant on this planet that has its roots right at the surface. If you give it a choice, those roots are growing down. So we have to build structure. We've got to get the biology back in there and build the airways and passageways and hallways to let those roots go deeper. When we're looking at cannabis, how deep can the root systems go? Next slide. It's not very different from grass. So the root systems of the cannabis should be at least 3 to 4 feet. In this particular case, this is a 4.5 foot deep root system from grass. Everybody always tells you that grass doesn't put its roots down more than a couple inches. Only if there's a compaction layer. Only if that's not soil, that's dirt. And a compaction layer has been formed. If this is good structure all the way down, within the first growing season, this is a 3.5-month-old plant. Started from one seed. Now look at that massive root system in just 3.5 months. How far down will the root system of this plant eventually go as soil structures keeps being built, as this root system keeps growing down, because this is a perennial plant and it will keep growing. Next slide. This is work that was done on the Great Plains of the United States. Well, same thing happened up here in Canada, where they went out into the Great Plains. They dug pits 40 feet deep, brought out a fire truck, washed that surface, put a plate glass over that, tracing paper, and they traced the root systems of these plants by hand. The root systems of the most productive grasses go down 25 feet. How deep down can the root system of your cannabis? Don't really know, because we haven't grown the cannabis in conditions where we don't have compaction. So how much more productive could your plant be? And what we see is where we're starting with dirt, and the root systems can't go down very deep. We don't have very tall plants. As those root systems can grow deeper because we build the soil structure, we can increase yields by 50%. As we keep allowing those roots to grow deeper, we increase yields by 300%. As we keep building that biology in the soil, maintaining the proper balance, we have increases as compared to conventional systems. We have increases of 1,000%. Have we reached the max? What is the genetic potential of these plants. Have we actually gotten there yet? No. Are we at the end of it? We've got to keep working on it so we can have that data.
So technically, like, larger than.
Yeah. You don't want to be cutting your root systems off at 4 feet. You don't want to stick your plant in a pot unless you like having plants. I don't know. Any of you want to live in? What do you smoke? So, how much more productive could we be, not just with cannabis, but with all of our foods? Everything that we're growing for human beings. We need to start understanding this. So, can you tell the highly unproductive grasses? Yeah, they're the ones with short root systems. That's a part of the definition of a weed. A weed does not put much energy into the root system. A weed is going to put all of its energy into above ground seed production. So those really short grasses, guess which one is cheatgrass? Guess which one is Bromus tectorum? It only puts its root systems down maybe 2 inches, 3 inches max. But it looks beautiful green because it's just sucking nutrients, it's sucking water, and then goes into seed production. It doesn't put much energy into the root system. Here's another weedy grass. Crested wheatgrass. Huge problem in the Great Plains of the United States. It's not a very productive grass. Good luck keeping your animals alive on a pasture full of crested wheatgrass. It's just not the thing we want to be growing. Maybe in Russia it has deeper roots, who knows, but not here in the US. So the best, so the intermediate ones, you can start saying something about productivity, looking at how far down the genetic potential allows those roots to grow. What builds the structure to allow those roots to go down? Yeah, it's your microorganisms. Question?
So would it be beneficial?
Talk really loud so everybody else can hear
Would it
you.
be beneficial if you were planting these types of cover crops to have something that has like a huge root mass, so your microbiota alive, it doesn't grow too small, so it's easy.
Yeah, so we want the perennial cover plants to not put a whole lot of effort into the above ground because I don't want to have to cut them so they, what happens if you've got a plant that starts out this tall and you put your cannabis in there? Well, it's shaded. They're not going to do it. So we want short guys that aren't competing with our starts we don't want them competing when we put that seed in and the first shoots come up. We want to make certain that we've cleared an area around our little seedling so it's not going to be shaded. So short, low growing, dichondra, isotomas. There's a huge number of potential candidates for this. We need to start testing. Question way back there.
Are deep root systems essentially like a highway for microbiology from like lower lying levels that you could potentially bring up beneficial bacteria from otherwise unattainable or inaccessible layers?
Yeah, it's how far down can we be finding new and different species that we maybe don't have up on the surface of the soil. But the thing that really moves bacteria and fungi around are the taxicabs that are in the soil. You didn't know you had taxicabs in the soil, did you? These are the microarthropods, these are the spiders, these are the bigger predatory organisms that move along those root systems as the superhighway. Now we've got I-5. Well, what's I-5 for these organisms that live in the soil? The root. Easy way to get around. So they're spreading all these wonderful organisms throughout that root system as the root goes down. And they're helping to build that structure as your root grows down. You hit a compaction zone. Your root cannot grow into that compacted area because this is anaerobic. And all those toxic chemicals are being made. All the diseases are growing here. So we have to get our biology down to that surface. and get them to start building that structure before our root system gets there. Next slide. So succession. And this is one of the things that you gotta catch on to make some decisions about what is the balance of bacteria and fungi, protozoa and nematodes that the plant I want to grow requires. People will always ask me, okay, what's the right number of organisms to have in my compost? And my answer is always going to be, it depends. Yeah, because what plant are you trying to grow? So you go through succession and you can see how bacteria and fungi alter as you go through succession. So where does cannabis fall on this successional gradient? And please remember, next slide, that as we go from bacterial dominated, strictly nitrate present in that soil, which is what allows weeds to win. Weeds require almost strictly nitrate. The weedy species that we don't like, mostly nitrate and a little bit of ammonium. But as we get into this, part of this successional process, where we start growing cannabis, those cultivars that start growing in this stage of succession need a little more nitrate than they do ammonium. So they're on this side of that fungal to bacterial biomass ratio. Because to make high concentrations of THC, you have to have a little more nitrate than ammonium coming into the root system. And that's what triggers your plant to make more THC. How about those cultivars of cannabis that require a little bit higher fungal concentration? And what happens here is now we're over the edge to more ammonium than nitrate. And that seems to be what triggers the production of CBD. Which kind of CBD? Well, we haven't gotten that far. So there's some work that still needs to be done. You know, we don't know everything. How boring would it be if we knew everything? So really boring. What would we have left to do?
Is it already well known which strains prefer fungal environment, or do you have any sort of?
The work that we've been doing is where we're seeing those cultivars that produce high levels of CBD are the ones that require that higher fungal biomass. To produce that higher fungal biomass, or to produce those CBDs, there seems to be a correlation. And the longer and longer we have people working on this kind of question, looking at the biology in the soil and then what's the concentration of THC and CBD, this seems to be holding true. Now, how about those cultivars that produce both THC and CBD? Okay, we haven't gotten there yet, so let me ask you to work with us on this one so we can figure some of these intermediate ones. Are those the ones that have to be right there at 1-to-1 ratio?
So as far as like phenotypical expression, are we finding that like your balance of fungi to bacteria like is causing one phenotype to come out higher blood pressure and CBD and one high pressure and THC, or even just certain ways and things like that are being expressed differently with different ratios?
Yep, with different ratios, we're seeing different expressions of terpenoids, of other compounds. You know, it's like there are several different kinds of CBDs. There's, what is it, A and G, or I get a little confused with all that because I look at bacteria cultivars. Up to you guys to look at all that other stuff, and we work together on these things.
This organic soil is definitely, like, for growing cannabis, you're getting a lot higher phenotypical expression from the CBD growing chemical salts. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that, like,
Yeah, you can see where we're, more work. Question?
The correlation between causation on the expression of THC versus CBD in the soils versus those cultivars preferring the soils based on associated genetic factors.
Yeah, you've got to have that predilection for requiring more nitrate versus requiring more ammonium. And And it seems to be that the expression based on that balance is then going to cause the compounds in the buds to be expressed. So it's something that is, at least the way I think of it, is that you've got to have this balance of fungi and bacteria first, and then subsequently you see the expression of the genetic material of the plant. So you start looking at things like nitrogen fixation or denitrification, some of those other processes that you've got to have a symbiosis with the plant. It functions exactly the same. Question back there, and then I want to go on to the cannabis examples I've got.
So we're really differentiating the, phenotypical or cannabinoid expression in cannabis that's being grown and produced, but is there something in the actual fungal aspect or fungal component that would create a different, like fungal or mycelium-based diversity and even push certain expressions further than maybe other types of mycelium?
Because the highly beneficial fungi are the ones that produce a lot of organic acid, and there's a symbiosis with your plant. Your plant is putting out exudates that are preferred by fungi. The fungi outcompete the bacteria, and so now the organic acids that are produced in high concentrations by those fungi cause the soil to become slightly more acidic, which means NH4 released by predators eating bacteria and fungi is going to keep that nitrogen, form of that soluble nitrogen as NH4. And it does not allow the nitrifying bacteria to express their genetic material to take the hydrogens off that NH4 and convert it into nitrite and then nitrate. Isn't nature kind of scary with the way she's figured these things out? And we have to pay attention. And please realize that there's probably only been 5 or 6 years since we really even began to start to figure this out. So next slide. So what does your plant need? So here we have different cultivars that produce more THC, and then those cultivars that produce more cannabinoids. So what's the genetic material on your plants? Or is it strictly just because we've got that bacteria fungi, it's going to do more THC? We're going to, we need to be working together on this question.
It's different synthases. CBG is the building block to any cannabinoid, and depending on the genetic code, it's got different synthases that make THC or CBD or any other terpene with it. I don't know what exactly the fungal content or bacterial content will do for that, but it's probably promoting different synthases.
Yeah, it's all got to get back to the enzymatic level and understanding organic acid production versus alcohol produced by the bacteria, and how is that signaling the genetic material in your plant. It's got to be involved in there somehow, but you can see where that's going to take teams of people that have different expertise to get this beyond the correlation stage. See this correlation over and over. Is it 100%? Do we understand what's going on inside the plant? What's the signaling? Nope, we don't. Stay tuned. How long is it going to take us to figure this one out? So next slide. Claims are always that to go sustainable or to go regenerative means you've got a period of years where you're going to get lower yield, you're going to have more weeds, you're going to have poor nutrition, more diseases, and this is absolutely not the case. The data that we have, when you really understand biology in the soil, you don't have reduced yields, you have higher yields. We have more cannabis production, cannabinoid production. We can have all of these benefits within the first growing season. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, they haven't ever managed to make compost. So next slide. So some of the case studies from the soil food web consultants that we've been working with. So the next slide. Of course, Scott and Sarah are, two of the soil food web consultants that we've been working with for a while, and they're having, cut inputs, fight diseases, get greater yields. So, if you want to find out what they're doing, go talk to them. Invite them to the next conference and have Scott and Sarah start relating this information. Next slide. Sarah is usually the one that does the assessments on the microscope. Scott is the one who does more of the field work. So this is an interesting example where this cultivar of cannabis was dying, and the grower basically said, not much we can do about this. We've lost our yield, it's a total, no. Getting here with those things that compete with, inhibit, and consume that particular mite problem. You can see all the webbing on those leaves. You can see where everything is starting to wilt. A lot of the leaves have actually gone brown. It's dead, right? You just throw it out. No, get out there with the proper biology. Get it on those leaf surfaces, and the plant can recover. So, please start working with us. If you've got, what we would like to do is make sure that your plant never gets like this picture on the right. We want to make certain that we are going to kill all of the eggs of this particular insect pest. So where is between those great big pieces of gravel? Where all that organic matter, someone pulls a weed out and just throws it on the floor. That's the perfect place then for this pest to be laying their eggs in that anaerobic material on the floor between those pieces of rock. So let's be spraying that material with really good biology so that all of those eggs are going to be consumed, they're going to be decomposed, not cause you problems. When do the eggs hatch and where do the larvae go? And the larvae are typically going to be crawling up the legs of your tables. They're going to be moved by flies or other insects, other things that move around, and they're getting up into the pots, they're getting up into your soil and climbing up into your plant. So now when they hatch into adults, they're right up there. We want to make certain we take care of every single stage of the life of that insect pest so you never have this overwhelming problem ever again. Same thing with diseases. We've got to make sure we're going after every stage of the disease, the life cycle of the disease-causing organism, so it will never be able to reach plague conditions ever again. It may basically mean 4 times a year you're going to go into your greenhouse and you are going to spray everything on the inside of your greenhouse with a really good compost tea. What are we calling it now?
Biologically complete.
That's it. Biologically complete liquid amendment. To differentiate from all this time, people go, compost, I've tried compost, it doesn't work. Well, biologically complete compost. Biologically complete soil amendment. Will I ever remember? Next slide. Yes. Some of the really interesting things that Scott and Sarah have been doing is by applying the proper biology in this system, they see no requirement of the pesticides, the fungicides, the nematicides, all the acidal things, absolutely not necessary anymore. We can deal with every insect and pest problem that you've got with a proper biology. And so give us a call, we can help you with those things. So in all of the testing that they did with their clients, there was absolutely none of these types of chemicals found on the plant material. So do you have to worry about that? No. If you don't spray, if nobody close to you is spraying, so you may have to talk to your neighbors. If they're spraying these toxic chemicals, you might want to put up some barriers between you and them, so those toxic chemicals don't drift onto your property. Well, let's start working with them so they aren't spraying any of those things, so there isn't a drift factor affecting your plant material and causing you problems.
If you have a drift factor, can you add compost tea 3 times throughout the season to decompose those toxins on your surfaces?
Yes, all of these toxins are decomposable. The only thing we really have problems with are heavy metals, where you will have to be adding some foods to allow the bacteria, and especially fungi, to be able to take those heavy metals and pull them in and put those heavy metals into the structure of the organic matter so that they're not detectable when they're doing the typical testing for a heavy metal.
Same thing with heavy pollution traffic there.
Yeah, you may have to be applying more than once a week in really heavy places where there's constant drift factors going on. If you live next to a cornfield in Iowa, you are going to be out there once a week applying compost tea. It should just go through the irrigation in that case. So every time you irrigate, you're putting out the proper biology at the same time. Next slide. Up. Back there. Question. I'm pointing at you and say next slide. Where's my brain?
Really quickly, I mean, drifting is one thing, but what about like the water table? When you look at California, they've had a significant issue with like heavy metals as well as pesticides. Is there something that you could add in the landscape, just in and around, as a buffer that would help feed the bacterial cultures or the fungal cultures in order to break down those things before it leached through and kind of more towards the accessible water table for the plants?
If you want to figure out if your source of water is contaminated, and then how is that water getting to you? So like if you're using the irrigation, oh, it's great when you're 67 years old.
Irrigation, like the irrigation water source.
Irrigation water source, so where that's coming through. If that's what you're using and you know that that's going to be contaminated with all kinds of stuff, basically what you want to do, if you've got any place where there's a little bit of a drop in, it's coming in and you have a little waterfall, and then it continues on, put in a weir so that you're having to elevate that water before the water can go over the weir. And then on this side of that weir, stone dam, otherwise known as a weir, put in some fencing material and just make certain that you've got this completely filled with that really good compost. And generally you have somewhere around 3 to 4 months worth of cleaning up ability before that compost has been so harmed that the organisms are gone. And you need to clean that organic material and recompost it because you've got to get rid of all those toxics. And then you just refill that weir, that net on the fencing material on that side of the weir, and continue to clean up the water so you're not having to worry about that irrigation water. If you've got a contaminated well, you're going to have to pump that water up, and you're going to have to run it through a series of sieves, where the top sieve is where all the orange is getting caught, another sieve, another sieve, another sieve, so that what's coming out the bottom is clean. And you take, when the glop on the top is, gotten a layer on the top, you just take that sieve off and you're going to recompost that material, fill the sieve back up after you've washed it and cleaned it, fill it up with the compost, go back to your compost tower and just move the sieves up, and the fresh compost goes on the bottom. Now you will have humic acid and fulvic acid in that water, but that's exactly what we want in order to select for the fungi. It just has got like a tannish color to it. So most people don't want to drink it until they understand the benefit of humic acids and fulvic acids to their digestive system. So, yeah, we have to be drinking that stuff ourselves. So, I think you've probably read this, where large commercial cannabis farms average 25 to 45 harvested material per 1,000 square feet. By putting the biology back into the systems, Sarah and Scott are getting 80 to 100 pounds of harvested material per 1,000 square feet. Would you like to have those kinds of yields? Talk to Scott and Sarah.
Is zero a mistake?
Oh.
Read as 10,000. Okay.
Thank you for catching the typo, because, yeah, that's embarrassing. So, I'm gonna go beat up on Spencer. Probably with us. So, getting these kinds of yields, next slide, if you would.
Are those containers or in soil or how is that?
They work both in containers as well as beds in the greenhouse system. They get similar outside kinds of results as well. So all the different places that they work, they'll talk about that. Well, they'll probably want to know what you're doing and then show you what they've been able to produce under your kinds of conditions.
Right, I'm interested in knowing more about growing in the soil, in the greenhouse top, no containers there.
Yeah, way easier. You get much better results where you don't constrain the root systems of your plants, and they can get down as far as they can manage to get, so they don't have the compaction. We don't typically irrigate. We don't add water because if the root systems are going down to groundwater, to that surface water, we don't have to irrigate. There are lots of places where we deal with other crops, where we've gotten the structure back in, where they've never been able to grow grapes before in Australia because they don't have enough water. They've been in this drought for the last 30 years. 30 years of drought. I think that's called climate change. But of course they won't admit it. But we managed to grow grapes there. In a bad drought year, we are the only farm that grows grapes. Yep, we grow cannabis, or I work with people who grow. Yeah, I don't want to be the grower. I want to help you grow. Okay? I think I've got some of those numbers coming up. So, let's keep going. You've read this too, so the cost of the program is much less than the chemical. So not only are you making higher yields, you're reducing your costs. Next slide. This is Keisha and Casey, another set of food web consultants who have been growing cannabis as well. So substantially increasing their yields. I don't think they've been looking at the THC or the cannabinoids yet, but hold on, they probably will. So next slide. They increased in the conventional organic, I like that, conventional organic system. In the organics, but they were trying to differentiate between plus biology, which is organic, versus the place where you use a lot of manures or you put on a lot of accepted chemical materials. In the organic system, you are still allowed to use lime and gypsum. Why? You should never have to do that. You are still allowed to use sulfur. You're still allowed to use copper sulfate. If you've got a fungal disease, you're going to apply sulfate, right? Copper sulfate. What's copper sulfate killing? Remember how I reacted to the thiosulfate? Yeah, because it's a fungicide, and you're killing the very organisms that you need to have to not have to use that type of chemical. Question?
If your soil, you use soil test and you're deficient in copper, how else do you get copper?
Because that copper is already in your soil. If your soil is 100% organic matter, you have massive concentrations of copper in a not plant available form in that organic matter.
Even if the soil test shows there's no copper.
Right, because the soil tests are only telling you about soluble inorganic copper. It ignores the exchangeable copper. It ignores the total copper. And typically, the information they're giving you on a soil chemistry test, they're only telling you something between 0.01 to 0.1% of the total of that particular nutrient. They're just ignoring it, because if you don't have biology in your soil, you can't access it. So if you don't have any organisms, if you've just got sand, silt, or clay, and that's all you got, okay, you're going to have to put on inorganic fertilizers, because there's no way to get all of those nutrients that are in your soil back into a plant available form. So you see how we've been lied to by the chemical industry? I wonder why they would do that. What are they trying to sell you?
Copper sulfur.
Bingo! They're trying to sell you copper fertilizers or phosphate fertilizers or blah 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 fertilizer. So who's making money? You or them? Nice little racket they got going, isn't it? And especially when you understand that you do not have to keep following that paradigm. Keep the money in your pocket, which is where it belongs. You're doing the work, you should keep that money. So, differences in yield. Let's go a little bit further. I'm almost done.
Elaine, are there different tests, different soil tests, some that do measure the available and the other ones that measure what's not available? They have those full tests available to us.
Right. You can ask for total nutrients, but you know those tests have all been done. You can go to almost any CRC chemical handbook, and they will tell you what the typical normal total amount of any nutrient is in any soil that you want to talk about on this planet, and they are all way high. You've got, like think about in that example that I showed you from the total nutrients in the soil. Your calcium's up there at 50,000 pounds per acre. Why would you have to put in 3 tons more? It's just like insignificant as compared to what's there. The problem is that it's not in a plant available form, so it doesn't flocculate your clays, it doesn't soften your soil. So get your biology going, and in about 2 weeks' time, that problem is solved. So, and the fun part about it is we don't have to know every single nutrient, because it works for every single nutrient without us having to measure it. Question way back there.
You mentioned Scott, the consultant, and his increasing yields and decreasing diseases. I've talked pretty extensively with him, and I think it should be transparent that he actually does apply small amounts of copper sulfate, manganese sulfate, gypsum, and lime, and he does use those minerals in small amounts for growth.
If he has to. If he has to.
For sure.
So where are you starting out from? And you put the first application of the organisms into the system, and what if you don't get it completely converted? You haven't gotten that dirt all the way up to what the biology needs to be. Okay, that's the situation where we may, in that transition, use some of the fertilizers, we may use some of the toxics, but you've backed way off, or you're just applying it to a few plants that are in trouble.
For sure, but the one thing that he did say to me was that in his soil tests, he found no damage to fungal or bacterial populations in small doses of those, including copper sulfate.
So if you're less than 100 pounds per acre application, it doesn't typically cause a wide enough negative effect for us to be able to pick it up. So, okay, but why would you put on anything if you don't need to? So when you've converted all the way over and you've gotten your biology back into shape, you shouldn't have to use any of those amendments. Now, if you feel like you've just got to go ahead and you just can't let go of the safety blanket, okay? Just don't put any toxic chemical, any salt, on your soil more than 100 pounds per acre. And that's generally the break-off point. Less than 100 pounds per acre, it's not enough of a negative effect. It's like if you drink salt water, will it kill you? Well, if you keep drinking salt water, it will. But if that first sip's not going to hurt you. Well, it's going to do things to some of the biology in your digestive system, but not enough to make a difference. So, okay, but see, that's why I have to have 27 lectures. So I can go through all of these sorts of, well, how about this? How about that? Okay, under those conditions, then, okay, question back there.
So, I mean, you mentioned salts as like a toxic component to materials. So is there a difference between toxic salts and salinity in your soil? Just as maybe there would be a difference between toxic amendments or additives versus supplements that are environmentally and more kind of sustainably sought after?
So, you want to have that electrical conductivity low enough so that it's not killing your beneficial organisms. So there's a certain amount of, it's just like you. Would you be alive if you had absolutely no salts in your body?
Electrolytes would make it.
Yeah, you got to have that electron movement in your body. So you have to have enough. What happens if we get too high? Is that going to kill you? It's kind of like water. If you don't have enough water, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you have too much water?
You're gonna die.
You're going to drown. Okay, it's medium. It's a Goldilocks principle. You can have, this is optimal. Not enough, you're in trouble. Too much, you're in trouble. Everything is got to be properly balanced. And that's what the plant putting out the exudates, growing the bacteria and fungi. That's why we need this diversity of microorganisms, not just one or two species. We need a diversity so that under all conditions, those exudates your plant is putting out is going to grow the organisms that the plant requires. And so all the work is going to be done. So remember, it's a balance.
So the use of something like gypsum as an example to compare it to like the human anatomy in medicines, it would be symptomatically correcting what you're looking for potentially in the season, but it's not going to give you longevity as a solution to the actual problem at hand.
What happens to gypsum when you add gypsum into the soil? It leaches out. It's gone. In a 2-week period of time, you're not getting any more benefit from that gypsum that you added or the lime. So why are we doing that? Because your plants need that calcium. It needs that chloride. It needs all of these nutrients every second of every day. Your plant needs to be taking up all of these nutrients in the proper balance every second of every day. And how can putting on a supply of calcium carbonate at the tune of 3 tons per acre, that's what, 6,000 pounds, how long is that going to stick around? Until you irrigate or until it rains and it's gone. So it's kind of like the analogy I like to give to people is, if I said to you, how many pizzas are going to keep you alive and happy this year? How many pizzas should you be getting this year? And so you say 253. Great. I'm going to order 253 pizzas for you today, and I'm going to deliver them to your house. And now you're set for the year. You don't need any more pizzas. Are you going to be alive at the end of the year? No. Because think what happens to those pizzas in a week.
You better have a big freezer.
So it's the same sort of thing. That calcium's not hanging around. None of those salts are hanging around if we're putting in those salts. Let me finish my slides, okay? I know I kind of engendered this by answering questions partway through, but I have 2 minutes and 25 seconds left to go. So let's keep going. Next slide. Reductions in costs, reductions in the toxic chemicals, reductions in the labor costs. So how many of you like those numbers? Especially where labor is a huge part of all of this typically. We really just want everybody in the shop. The difference between soil and dirt. Hopefully you understand the basics. You don't need me to explain this picture for you anymore. If we're dealing with soil that has organic matter, what's the minimum organic matter that you have to support a healthy food web? 3%. If you're less than that, you're going to have to put on inorganic fertilizers. That's all there is to it. So if you don't get enough into that soil, can you get all the biology into that soil with one application of a biocomplete solid amendment or a biocomplete liquid amendment? Probably not. It's going to take a couple times. The example I like to give people is like when the Pilgrims came over from Europe and started to settle the North American continent. The first 3 boats of Pilgrims that came over arrived at Plymouth Rock and started building their houses and barns and putting in wells and all of that. And winter happened about a month and a half after their arrival. How many of those Pilgrims survived until the next boatload of Pilgrims came by? 10%. If only 10% of the Pilgrims if that had been it, and no more Pilgrims had arrived, would the North American continent be as it is today? No. So a one-time inoculation just may not be enough. So the second boatload of Pilgrims comes over, and they arrive earlier in the year, and so 10% remaining from the first boatloads had already done the work, building the houses and building the barns and building the wells and stuff. So the second boatloads of Pilgrims that came over, how many of them survived through the next growing season? 50%. Is that enough to do all of the changes? Have we gotten the accumulation of all the species and all of the things that have to, maybe not, maybe yes. How do you know whether you have biology in your soil with 1 or 2 or 3 applications? How many do you have to have? Microscope. Find out for yourself whether you've gotten the organisms that you need. It required 3 boatloads of Pilgrims to come over and colonize enough so it was a stable population so it could start to grow on its own. 3 inocula is what was required. And we see that number over and over again when we're trying to take dirt and converting it into soil. 3 inoculations. Otherwise, you just don't have enough survival without replenishing, without regenerating. Question.
Will you also use 3 inoculations if you're working with trying to maximize root height with the compression zone?
Yeah.
And you're,
Typically, if you've got a compaction layer, you have to get those organisms down there. So sometimes when we see really nasty, 600 psi compaction layers that are very deep, we'll actually go till the one last time and then put the first inoculum in the second, the third. Yeah.
Is there a time window in when then and when you test it after the third?
I always test 2 weeks after. Because you want enough time to pass that if death is going to happen, death has happened, and I can check that out. So 2 weeks is about right. If they've survived that long, then they probably are going to continue to survive unless drift, something happens. Yeah. So final slide. Ta-da. You all know what this means, right? There are so many things that we haven't talked about yet. There's lots of little nuances in here, so come take the online courses where you get to go deeper. Next slide. Okay. All biology has to be present. Drives me crazy when people don't pay attention. They want put on one application of manure that they've mixed up in water and let sit overnight in their kitchen. What's happened overnight if you've taken a couple pounds of manure straight out of the animal. Added about 4 gallons of water. Stir it with your hands for an hour. And then leave it sitting in your kitchen overnight. I can't imagine how that person could manage to walk into their kitchen the next morning, given the smell. And then they proceeded to go out and spray that compost tea. There wasn't any compost involved. This is a manure tea. Now what happens when you spray that manure tea on your cherry tree? Killed it. Yeah, shit tree. Yeah, that's a So, and then they go around and say to everybody, I've tested compost tea and I've got scientific data that proves that compost tea doesn't work. So, please check for all the biology and make sure they made it. I think the last slide is this one. We can return health to the soil. It's not going to take millions of dollars. It's not going to take massive amounts of all that effort. We do have to learn how to make actual real compost. So, thank you very much. Okay.
I have a question. So what would be the best liquid inoculant to increase your fungal levels? Is there something, like a compost tea, you use that to increase your material? Is there an equivalent, easy to use, easy to make liquid, either feed or inoculant that would work well for fungal specifically if I actually just want to reduce the fungal levels?
Typically, when we have a really good compost that's got that really rich, wonderful dark brown color that smells like the forest floor, please learn what a forest floor smells like. Because I've had people who said, "Oh yeah, it smells wonderful. It's just like a forest floor." Okay, let me smell. Oh, no, that's not forest floor. That's actinobacteria. Please don't call that anything good. So learn what are oak wood forests out there for. It's for you to go smell what that forest floor smells like. So when we extract a real actual compost and you get that liquid coming through, just passive, don't shake, don't mix. Passive, because you don't want to rip any of the organisms off that compost and into that liquid. We want just the soluble foods. So what comes out is that water extractable humic acid, fulvic acid, omic acid, so a whole bunch of these really good food sources for the fungi. And I like that quite often as the fungal food. Now you can also put solid materials in there. Make sure that if you get grain, you get whole grain, so it's got the seed coat on the outside. Because that's the wide carbon and nitrogen ratio material. That's what is going to help grow your really beneficial fungi. So whole grains, not just the germ. You want a whole grain. And I typically then grind those up a little bit more fine. So that's another good food source for them. So anything that, you can go into the mushroom growing recipes, that information, and what we use to make the blocks to grow spawn in, those are really good fungal foods. They have to be. And so a huge number of food sources that you can access. And of course, then they're available in all those places where, you go in there to buy your spawn or you buy, garden shops, things like that. Okay? Okay. Over here. You don't want to be using materials that you don't know if there's not some diseases in there. And so you go out into that forest and you really have to know a lot about the past history of that place in the forest. Has there been any trees that have died here? Are there some disease-causing organisms in that forest floor? So collect that material and put it into your compost. And then compost, get it up to the temperature, let it go through an earthworm's digestive system. So, sit it without any plants growing in it, because disease-causing fungi, bacteria, the root-feeding nematodes have to have a host plant. So if you're 2 or 3 years away from being anywhere near a growing plant, the diseases have probably died. But see, I usually want to make a compost and use it by next week. And so I'm gonna typically do the thermophilic thing or worm compost, because those are much faster. For you to put something in a pile and do the static, you're talking at least 1 to 2 years for you to know that that's not got any pathogens in it. Okay? Back there?
I'm hearing a lot more people doing sap tests in their plants to see how that's correlating with once the plant's getting out of the soil. I just wondered if that rate's correlating to, what you talked about the soil.
Yeah, it's well, you're using bricks. So you squeeze. So the tap test is a bricks test. And so you squeeze your plant tissue, so either the stem or the leaves or whatever part of the plant you want to know about. You squeeze a drop or two onto the little, the bricks meter, so a drop or two onto that window, and then you put a cover on that, so it's a uniform thickness plant sap, and you hold it up to sunlight. And it's got to be sunlight, sorry, inside doesn't work. We don't have the right wavelengths of light when we're under our inside lighting, so it's got to be outside in the sunlight. When you're looking at a daylight today, sorry, you need sunlight. This is too dim. So it can be hard to take the sap tests and really get good numbers all the time. You're going to hold that bricks meter up to the light, and so when you look through the end, I'm exaggerating the size of that end. What you're typically going to see is a line that goes from like -5 up to 30 or maybe even 40. And you're looking for where the sap itself is causing a line to be made. And so you can read the value of the concentration of solids in that sap. Most of that solid material is actually sugar. The higher the sugar, the higher the line is going to be. So if your sugar concentration in that sap is down around 0, 1, -1, you've got a plant that's in trouble. What's missing? What does that plant need? And so I would strongly encourage you to go down into your soil and find out what the biology is that's missing. Because you're missing protozoa or nematodes, or you're missing the bacteria, the fungicide, it's way off.
It's a really good field test people can do. They can do quick sap tests on their plants, and they can go, oh, geez, I need to check in with the soil.
Yeah.
What about the mineral content of the line being
Yes.
fuzzy?
So then, often it's a real sharp, straight line. You have no protein in that sap. You want that line to be fuzzy, so it's a real fuzzy line. You can't exactly tell where that line actually is. So you want to get a measure of the fuzziness. So it goes from 2 to 5, fuzzy, not a right nice sharp line. That means you've got a lot of protein. If it's not fuzzy much at all, you don't have much protein in there. The other thing you might do is buy some of the handheld nitrate and ammonium meters, test meters. There's a particular name for them, and the brain is search and locate function is not. So it's the same thing, you just put a drop of whatever material you want to test with nitrate or ammonium or phosphate or sulfate. So there are handheld meters like that for all of those things. And a really easy way to look at those instead of being dependent on sending the sample into a lab. And really, when you're looking at nutrient concentration in the soil, is that the important thing? No. It's the nutrient content in your plant. Isn't that what you want to know about? So see, that makes a lot more sense to me to spend your money on those handheld meters, because they're only about $100, $150 per meter. And could we start sharing those meters amongst people growing in the same area, so you don't have to bear the whole price yourself? It's just whoever drops the meter and brings it, they have to pay for for the next one. Have I done that? Okay, any other questions? Have we had enough? It's time for lunch.
Remind us of the culture that we were raised in, that there's a fix, there's a problem, and there's a product or something that is going to solve that. And even in this organic world, like we're so conditioned to it that we want to believe that. And so, remember what I was talking about? There's different climates. There's a lot going on here. Elaine is a scientist. The different speakers here are going to have different opinions on some of this stuff, and there are different approaches. And Elaine is a scientist. She speaks about what she's seeing, and she tries to be very clear about that. But I also want to, bring up, make this an open place where we can challenge, and ask questions that we don't understand, and I think I'm pretty damn sure Josh and Kelly are going to bring up some of these things or how they approach the same topics in a slightly different way. And so I just want to encourage you guys to go through that, and through that, and get time with these speakers. So we're going to take an hour lunch break. We'll be back here at 1:30. Oh yeah, let me introduce the folks here real quick. Joshua Stevens, raise your hand, bro. He's here. He'd love to talk to you. He's an indoor cultivator in Southeast Washington, in Oregon. And if you don't know him, you got
It's Joshua Stinson over there, guys.
Josh, Kelly, Dragon Fighter Medicine.
It's Kelly.
And Kaya, professors over there, everybody knows them. And yeah, reach out to these guys. They want to talk to you and answer questions. So, yeah, thank you guys very much. Grab a quick lunch once they're over.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Okay, so if you haven't realized, I am at the Science of Organic Regenerative Cannabis Conference 2019. This is a $300 conference, guys. Okay. I'm letting it out. So hey, you got lunch? Be back.